Hi there, and thank you for launching this video tutorial for Survey of Accounting. As I mentioned in the Moodle announcement, there's going to be a series of videos. You'll need to log in and watch them all. There will be a series of key words that you'll be keyed into. In each of the videos, you'll need to email me the string of keywords in order to receive credit for attending class. Otherwise, you'll be marked absent from class for Thursday this week. So, as we get underway with Chapter 2, we're going to start to work and talk about the accrual basis of accounting and some of the concepts related to that. So let's take a look again at our course learning outcomes. The two big course learning outcomes that we'll be addressing here in Chapter 2: understanding the effects transactions have on the financial statements, as well as preparing financial statements. We're going to continue to work with that accounting framework that we started with in Chapter 1 and continue to add and expand the accounts that we're going to use and the levels of transactions that we're thinking about. As we get into a little more complex transactions, or as we continue to build out our understanding of accounting transactions, kind of taking a step, like I've talked about in class, that we're the bookkeepers, we're the people keeping score for the company. So we're not only keeping the points, but now we're going to start talking about, well, how do we keep track of the assists? Who passed it? Who gets credit for the assist? Maybe multiple assists for a given goal in soccer, or ideas along those lines. So let's take a look at some of the key terms that we're going to be talking about here in Chapter 2. Accounts payable, hopefully that jumps off the page at you here. Again, these slides are also posted on Moodle, as well as the handouts. So I'd encourage you to possibly print those off if possible, if you have access to a printer nearby. Otherwise, maybe just make some notes in your notebook, and I will have handouts available for you when we get back together in class next week. Hopefully one of the words that jumps off the page at you is accounts payable. What's some of the connections we can make related to that? What does that sound like? What does accounts payable sound like? Does it sound like an asset? Does it sound like something we own? Does it sound like a liability? Something we owe? Does it sound like revenue? Something we sold? Does it sound like an expense? A cost of doing business? It may sound like an expense, but more importantly, it's a liability. It's an item that we owe to someone else. It's payable. It's something that we owe to someone else. The opposite of a payable is a receivable, something that's owed to us. So the opposite of the account payable is the account receivable, money owed to us. So we'll take a closer look at all these different ideas and concepts for these key definitions or key new vocab words that are on the board right now. Towards the end of the chapter, we'll talk specifically about the accounting cycle and that accounting process. The big item here in Chapter 2 is the accrual basis of accounting. Believe it or not, you already have the knowledge that you're going to apply to Chapter 2, to the accrual basis of accounting. You already have the core foundation. I got a couple questions for you. Have you ever had a job? Have you ever worked? Part-time summer job? Full-time school year job? Whatever the case might be. Most of us have had a job. Okay, I want you to think about that job. And what I want you to think about is, you show up to work Monday morning. You work your shift. You go home. Have you earned anything? Have you earned anything? Does the company owe you anything? Have they paid you for that day's work that you just put in? They haven't paid you, but you've earned something. You earned that one day's pay. It's the same thing that we would apply to a company. When we talk about their revenue, we want to look at when they earn that revenue. How do they earn that revenue? When do they earn that revenue? In the accrual basis of accounting, we're not concerned with when they actually receive the cash payment. When does the customer pay? We're not concerned with that. What we're concerned about is when they actually earn the revenue. When do they provide the service if they're a service-based company? When did they sell the merchandise if they're a merchandising company? Same is true with our expenses. We're concerned about when we incur the bill, not so much about when we pay the bill. When did we use the natural gas to heat the facility? When did we use the electricity to run the coolers in our kitchen? When did we receive the ingredients that we're going to turn into our donuts in our bakery? When did we take possession of those ingredients? At that time, we've incurred an expense. All right, let's take a look at a timeline here. After graduation, you decide that you're going to start up a new consulting company. You graduated from TU, you got a great head on your shoulders, and you're ready to begin your own business. You decide to meet with a lawyer to make sure that your ducks are in a row and that your entity is being formed properly and that you're abiding by all the laws in the state in which you're going to do your business. So you meet with the lawyer on December 25th, 2018. You pay the bill related for the services on October 2nd. Then on October 7th, the lawyer actually takes your check and deposits it into their bank account. From the lawyer's perspective, when do they have revenue for that visit that you made to their office? When are they going to have revenue? When did they earn that revenue, those fees that they charged you? Did they earn them on September 25th, October 2nd, or October 7th? I want you to take 10 seconds to write down a date. September 25th, October 2nd, or October 7th. The date that we're concerned most with as the lawyer's office is September 25th, because that is in fact the date that the services were provided. That's the date they earned those fees which they invoiced you for. That's the date they earned that revenue. That's the date we need to think about and record that transaction based on that date and that time. There's a better chart on the next slide, so let's go to that instead. When we talk about accrual basis accounting, we talk about accruals. And basically, the idea behind accrual is that we incur an expense, and then on the tail end of it, we make the payment. Or we earn some revenue, and then we receive the payment. Notice how the payment is disjointed from the day or time when the expense is incurred or the revenue is earned. Okay, this is how most business happens. Accruals are the way business takes place. Expenses are incurred and then they get invoiced, and then we make our payment. We earn our revenue, we send our customer an invoice, and then they pay us. This is the most typical business relationship out there. I don't know if any of you have had a job where you actually had to go out and buy some materials or something from a supplier or from a store and put it on a charge account at that store. Maybe you needed some parts or materials, some sort of supplies to do your job. If you went into the store and bought the supplies and said put it on the account, what you're basically doing is setting up an expense accrual for your company. You took ownership of those supplies, and the company at a later date is going to make the payment, not at the time that you took possession of those supplies. Okay? When we take a look at deferrals, those are basically the opposite end of the spectrum. Cash is made, the payment is made on the front side, and then we have an expense that we incur or revenue that we earn over time. Okay? One of the examples that I talk about is that when I was in the oil and gas industry, we had to pay our insurance premium for the whole year by the 15th of January. We had to pay upwards of $60,000 on January 15th in order to have insurance coverage for the rest of the year. We hadn't incurred a full year's of insurance coverage, but we still had to make that full year payment in the middle of January as the new year began. So we would make a significant payment, and then we would incur that expense over the remainder of the year. Again, deferrals, the cash payment happens at the beginning, and then we either incur the expense or earn the revenue over time. Where's the payment in relation to the expense or the revenue? So again, accruals, revenue, or expenses are recognized before the cash is exchanged. And deferrals, revenue, or expenses are recognized after the cash is exchanged. So the key word for this first video is accounting. So you want to write that down in your notes. In the second video, you'll get an additional word as we begin to look at transactions based on the accrual basis of accounting.